Hey guys, it's Mountain Walk, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about everything. I've got a couple of different things I wanted to talk about, just keeping a list of random things. Um, and there's so much random stuff, it's like, oh my gosh, I don't even know most stuff that doesn't even really deserve its own um, like video or whatever. So just sort of throw them all together. Let's do that again. Uh, so let's see. Let's start from the top. So as you know, 25 years Magic, all that good stuff. Although we've seen them try and celebrate that in different ways, like releasing sets that are overhyped. I mean, obviously Masters 25 and iconic Masters, and wow, that was pretty bad. Um, that was very didn't go out so well. It didn't turn out so well. They were 0 for 2 for that, so that didn't work. But they are actually trying to do stuff. So, um, so let's in honor of that, uh, let's talk about basically. There's a couple different articles, actually quite a few. So a month or two ago, a couple months ago, I guess now, Pat Chapin did an article of 25 best cards of each color. So no artifacts multicolored or lands. Um, so that was pretty interesting. And uh, then Channel Fireball did for like last couple months 100 best cards in Magic. And then also on like I think it was like the Magic subreddit, they were doing like like basically like the all these like I guess it's just best cards, but I mean obviously like for any of these lists it's not just like power level, it's like how are the cards perceived, how they play out, are they fun cards, are they miserable to play against cards. um so yeah, so that's pretty interesting. I believe the final. Well, okay. So I guess I should say now. It'll be a little bit of spoilers. I won't really say everything what's on these lists. Although I mean, like the top 10 or 20 cards for like these lists tend to invariably always be the same cards because some cards are. It kind of is sort of about like power level in some respects, like what is the best basically because they're so very good, they're basically ubiquitous. um so that's kind of interesting. So I'll get into a little bit of it. I won't try and spoil it too much, but I'll put links for all these different things in the description. So Chapin, his thing was basically just gotta do the 25 cards of each color, so you get a little bit of like worse stuff in like the lower rankings. Like there was like Inferno Titan was pretty high in the red list, which I thought was strange. But I mean, he even admits like in it, so I'll give him a little bit more leeway that it's like it's hard because it depends. Like if you started playing like in '93 or start playing in 2000 or you start playing like 2010, like you'll have different ideas of like what was the most impactful. I mean, because it's we're viewing it all through like rose tinted glasses and nostalgia and all sorts of other. We have all sorts of biases, that would affect that. But I think Chapin did get right. Like he did mostly. I think Chapin was a little bit better on like the top cards. I think he was basically like home run on those. So like pretty much for every color, there was some stuff that. I didn't like too much, but I don't want to go into it too much and ruin it because it's such an interesting series of articles because he's been playing forever, and I really like his writing style. I think it's pretty entertaining, pretty interesting. So I like that. So I'll put a link for that. So that's always good stuff. What do we got next? We got that's right, the Channel Fireball one. So Channel Fireball did like 100 best cards, and they've been releasing it for the last couple months. So let me check real quick, make sure I got all this stuff correct. I did. Yeah, because I'm looking I'm looking for a specific card. Yeah, I don't see it. Okay, so on their list, like I said, again, more spoilers, a few spoilers. So 100 best cards. This is everything basically. Um, and the first thing that stood out to me was there was no demonic consultation. Like, it's not on the list. Don't even look for it. Which I thought was a little strange because they had like a ton of different guys. They had like Brian Weissman. And this is a video series that Channel Fireball did, sort of like their older like top 8 lists and stuff they would do. This is like that in that same sort of format, except it had, you know, a bunch of people and a rotating different cast. Like obviously old school guys like Brian Weissman, and then newer players and Jerry Thompson, obviously, and then LSV. So like you got a real big gamut of people. And just as an aside, I was really impressed with Brian Weissman. Like, he was really interesting to listen to, and obviously had a very different idea of what, or a better idea, obviously, because I didn't play around that time, and like 99.999% probably of Magic players today didn't play around that time, you know, or were only literally toddlers or something. Yeah, I guess the game is 25 years old. Old enough to drink. So, but yeah, no demonic consultation. That seems like an egregious oversight. There was a lot of weird stuff. But they have basic lands on the list, which I think is just weird. Those seem more like kind of foundational to the entire game of how it plays out. More like you could only play one land a turn and you start at 20 life. That's what those seem like. They almost seem less like cards and more part of like the rules of the game. I mean, obviously basics are really important, especially in Eternal formats. Protect against Wasteland, Blood Moon, Back to Basics, Price of Progress, obviously the big one, and so on. So there are drawbacks to obviously using like duels and so on. But I thought that was weird. I don't think they should have been on the list. I thought that was strange, and I think everyone was definitely like groaning, like why are these on the list? Like, all the people were there that were like, and they keep bringing it up, like, I can't believe you did this. Anyways, that was weird. Another one that's right off the bat, Wheel of Fortune, way too low. I mean, this is probably the most powerful red card ever printed. Like probably by like a factor of a quadrillion. And I can't. It's like in the 90s or something. Like, this is silly. Like, this is silly. I can't even. That's ridiculous. Oh yeah, there was like none of the really good goblins cards like Lackey or Recruiter, which probably should have been there because those are the really powerful ones. But they aren't there. But Goblin Guide was, which is obviously a very good one. But again, some of these cards are a little bit older, and so they're not going to really be there. It has Dismember, but no Fatal Push, which seems very strange. Because like Dismember is fine, but I think Push is just so much better. There's none of the no Heritage Druid, Nettle Sentinel. I mean, that's kind of the problem with a lot of these synergy decks, is like they have so many different cards, and not always one is the most important. They're all like have their own sort of thing. But yeah, I thought that was maybe a little weird. Like, I mean, I thought those, because they had Blood Braid Elf on the list, spoiler. But I thought these were obviously a lot more powerful, and they see more play than Blood Braid does. So, I mean, again, I think that's just like, it's played, like how good it was in Standard, and then it was banned in Modern for no reason, really. That's kind of wonky. Aether Vial is way too low. This should have been, yeah, that's way too low. At least should have been higher than Cryptic Command. Curse Scroll's on the list, which I thought was a little strange. Well, maybe not. It's pretty high, or pretty. It's not near the top echelons, I guess. Higher, lower on the list. Anyways, but obviously Curse Scroll's very good back in the day, and like that's just, I mean, actually, I'll talk about a little bit more about Curse Scroll later. And then also Gush is on this list, and I think that should have been higher. But I played some of the more like ridiculous Gush decks or whatever, you know, like in Vintage, where they're pretty good, pretty good with Fast Bond. So that's obviously coloring my ideas, and it gushes a lot worse in a format without it's certainly not automatic 4 it's a lot worse in the formats without dual lands, and so that's okay. And then no Sagatog, which I thought was a little weird. Again, like I said, I'll say it again a million times, a lot of these things are just they're subjective, right? And like I said, depend on when you play. But I always thought Tog, basically one of the best creatures ever or was at least one of the best creatures ever printed. Warped pretty much every format it was in, or dominated it, or was a very big player. I mean, especially the further back you go, the more ridiculous it got. It paired so well with like all the broken card draw and fast mana and things like that, and just other assorted broken stuff. Like, it was just kind of off on another level, and it probably would have still been played a lot longer in stuff like Vintage if you could actually, like, because there's a bunch of cards that were in the deck, like Brainstorm and Ponder and Merchant Scroll and then Gush, that were all restricted, so the deck doesn't really function as well without it. And stuff like Monastery Mentor is a little bit better because you don't need like critical mass. You could just cantrips or play just random spells and get a big board. Anyways, so yeah, but other than that, I think most of the list is pretty good, pretty obvious. I mean, I don't say it. I mean, you could probably even guess like the top 10 pretty easily. But I would, I would change it up a little bit. But yeah, I think that was a pretty good list in my estimation. Not too bad though. And let's see here. Oh yeah, so moving on to looking at some of the legacy stuff since Deathright's been banned. It's kind of interesting. I mean, it didn't really look that strange. It looks basically like it does. Well, now you have like the Grixis control decks, basically, instead of like the Grixis Pyromancer decks. Those are still played, but they seem to be a little less played than the Grixis control decks. Miracles, again, still doing very, very well, even without top. You see a lot of the same stuff. I mean, I get Death Shadow had like a sort of brief resurgence or whatnot. I mean, obviously that deck's fine. And it's just another Delver deck, basically. I mean, they all have their strengths and weaknesses, but I mean, they're, tempo decks. And those are all fine. People tried to play Blade Control, the Stoneforge blue-white Blade decks, again, for some reason. Now they're even worse, obviously, because of Kolaghan's Command, and the Grixis decks can easily deal with that stuff. So those fell out of favor. I've never been a huge fan of those decks. They're so dirty, and like unless they're playing something like Back to Basics, which I've seen some lists that don't, which I think is just weird. Like you really need like a Haymaker, because the deck just feels so underpowered. Kind of like it's not a bad deck by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a little uninspiring. Elves is obviously a little bit weaker without Deathrite, so it can grind. You've been seeing a little bit more goblins, but of course, like, again, you're not really going to see too much of that stuff, especially because it has a harder matchup against Grixis, because Kolaghan's Command and him are pretty brutal in a lot of cases. And Death and Taxes is still a little bit on the downturn, just because it's, Kolaghan's Command is hard to deal with, and the control decks can be pretty tough. And it's a tricky deck to play too. So, but yeah, I wouldn't really want to be playing that. Dredge seems to be doing pretty good, at least online. Lots of people playing Dredge, obviously pretty good against the control decks. Dredge is a pretty sweet deck, pretty fun to play. And online it's a lot easier too, because you don't have to worry about like trying to show your graveyard to everyone, trying to keep everything in order, and all that sort of bookkeeping stuff is kind of a pain. That's basically, Legacy's more or less where it is. The other big thing is like the blue-green red threshold, the Canadian threshold, rug, delver, whatever you want to call it. That's mostly stopped seeing very much play. Just a lot worse with just new printings like Fatal Push and Gurmag Angler, obviously, are pretty pretty big blocks for it. So that's okay though. I mean, but basically, yeah, it's same old stuff. Looks like some of the depths, the dark depths decks are switching to a more mid-rangey kind of thing, which I think is fine because it's just playing like Mox Diamonds instead of the other fast man like Lotus Petal or ESG, and also playing a Dark Confidant, which obviously, I mean, this is awesome in like a deck with like almost 30 land, or like 30 plus zero cost stuff, including the Mox Diamonds. So that's pretty sweet. That's really good there. That's like its own way to sort of just win. So if they can't, because eventually they'll deal with the Bob. Basically, you'll take over the game. And of course, he's winning with dork beats is really nice because like they just can't ignore all your guys and just focus on the combo. Especially like I said, since like the guy, they're so good. Like Sylvan Safekeeper, obviously very good at protecting the combo, and obviously just beating down is good too. So it's pretty sweet. Those decks seem pretty well positioned, and they got, of course, Abrupt Decay from, excuse me, not Abrupt Decay, but Assassin's Trophy. I guess they have both. They're playing a mix, but we'll talk about that. Get the Guilds of Ravnica. But yeah, it looks fine. I mean, again, like, yeah, just save blue decks on top, more or less, because well, the blue decks have all the cantrips, and most of the other decks just don't have the card selection. But that's okay. It is what it is. No use really complaining about too much. I'll try not to complain too much about that kind of stuff, since I hammer on it, like in real life and in on this channel, of course. So, all right. Yeah, it is what it is. So, but the meta looks, I mean, it's fine, I guess. I like control decks. I like Miracles a lot more with top. But hey, I think that's more fun. I wish Deathrite was still around, even though that did lead to a lot of homogenization. I know this other stuff was around, but that's okay. Okay, I'm done. Moving on. I got recently, or I guess this wasn't. I got a little less recently. Like they did a map for Dominaria. They put a lot of effort into it, and it looks cool. It looks awesome. So I ordered it. It was out of stock for the longest time, and it was done by a guy, Jared Blando. Not really sure how to pronounce last name. And it looks cool. It looks great. I'm probably gonna get the friggin' thing framed, because I don't really like to have like posters and stuff like that up or whatever, as it seems kind of like silly, But I like, less is more to me, for sure. But it looks great. It looks cool. I recommend it. I'll put a link to that in the description as well, to the website where you can buy it. He also was the guy that did the Ixalan map, which looks cool. I mean, these look like the old timey piratey map things. It's awesome. I loves it. I don't think it was too much, but it looks cool. It looks pretty cool. Okay, getting on to Guilds of Ravnica, which is a pretty sweet set. Like, I was pretty happy with it. There's a lot of really cool cards, a lot of just good cards, just a lot of good cards everywhere. Just good cards everywhere. Obviously, Assassin's Trophy, which I mentioned, is awesome. Like, that card's pretty sweet, and it's interesting. Do you play Prop Decay? Do you play Assassin's Trophy? It's obviously not like strictly better, because there's a real drawback to giving people a free land, to giving a rampant growth. Path to Exile kind of has showed that. So that's kind of interesting. Obviously, if you want to kill like a counterbalance or something like that, Abrupt Decay is a lot better. Or if you want to kill like particular things, but like if you're, say, like a dredge deck, and you wanna, and you let's say you have the like 2 mana available, you definitely want something like Assassin's Trophy to deal with obnoxious stuff like Leyline of the Void. So, because you don't really care about the drawback at that point, because it's just so you don't want to deal with it. So it's really good in combo decks. Or like the Black Green Depths I was just talking about. Like, it's pretty good because it can deal with like Caracas, it can deal with like enemy dark depths, wasteland. It can deal with like stuff like oh gosh, uh, uh, like any of the like Python needle effects and stuff like that. Also sorts of nasty stuff. It can deal with it. Um, so it's not, again, not strictly better, but it is an interesting choice, and I think it's a really great card. I think it's pretty cool. I think most of the mechanics were pretty interesting. I like Mentor. It's kind of wonky, but I still like it. I think it's cool. There's the Goblin Rabble Master guy with Mentor. I think that guy's pretty cool. Um, I think God, yeah, like the set is just full of just good stuff. I think it's pretty cool. Probably my favorite mechanic, of course, is Surveil, which is like the funniest mechanic to me because it feels so like spiky. Like it doesn't. That's definitely not something like a new player would like. It seems like Scry on steroids in some instances because like everyone would want to Scry, of course, but like, oh, why would I want to put cards in my graveyard or whatever? I mean, maybe even like mediocre players would recognize that, oh, okay, there's a lot going on here that's pretty strong. But yeah, all the cheap card manipulation. I mean, it's great. It's probably off the top of my head, probably the spikiest mechanic that's not like since Fading, right? Probably, yeah, because yeah, probably since like Fading. Because like, oh, what if it just dies eventually and I won't get anything from it or whatever? But a lot of the Fading cards were pretty good. So yeah, I like Surveil. I think it's a great mechanic. I think it's fun to play with. I like all the things it enables. I think it's great for. It really fits the flavor or theme or whatever of Dimir, which I think is pretty cool. And then there's Crackling Drake, which I thought was cool because the Izzet stuff has like Jumpstart, and I think that's really cool. And Crackling Drake's really good because like it counts stuff in Exile too. Oh, it's so sweet! Like that's a really fun card. It's seeing it do a lot of work in Standard, and I was wondering if if it would even be good in Modern. I was looking it up on the internet, clickety clack, and apparently some other people had the same idea. I'll see if I can link to an article, and it's really sweet, because it reminds me a lot of Psychodog, where it's just sort of underestimated or undervalued or whatever, maybe overlooked, and obviously like yeah, you can just kill in one or two swings with it, so that thing's pretty sweet, and it replaces itself too, so a card pops so it comes into place. That's pretty sweet. So it makes it like not as profitable just to just kill it, so that's pretty cool. I really like that. I think that's kind of interesting. So I wonder if there's like I've seen some lists, but I wonder if there are like more tuned lists, maybe more tempo based. It almost seems like that'd be pretty sweet. But yeah, so that's basically it. Lots of good stuff, lots of cool stuff. So yeah, it's been pretty interesting. Lots of interesting things going on. So I guess we'll stop there. And check out all those things I'll put in the description. Oh my gosh, so many links. All right, guys, thanks for stopping by. Have a great day.